Live from Knoxville, Tennessee, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I'm your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us. To follow us, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can enter those comments or questions for me or my guests as the show progresses. Also, email Zach at zachballinger.com. You're welcome to ask questions in that format as well. Without further ado, Adam, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Hey, thank you, Zach. I really appreciate it.
So, Adam, I want to jump right in here. What do you do career-wise?
So I am an organization and leadership consultant, which is really just a fancy way of saying I provide expert advice. So companies, whether, or organizations really that are, so at the government level, private industry, nonprofit, it really doesn't matter. They all are in need of somebody to help provide expertise, experience with how to make their workplace better.
Gotcha. And so, how did you get into this particular career out of curiosity?
Yeah, so I stumbled into it about 5 years ago, and most people don't just wake up one day and say, I want to be a consultant. What they find is that as they go through life, where you started, wanting to be whatever it was, you get really good at it. And then as you just continue and find new and interesting things that spark your interest, eventually you find that the best way you can help others and provide value is by being a consultant and going in and helping them overcome the challenges that you faced in something that you're really passionate about. And so I started my career in the Army, and that's where I got my leadership background and just working and, leading others, building teams, getting results. And in 2009, I got out, was a defense contractor for a short period of time, for about 3 years. And then from there, went into the private sector and just tried, I'll say, a similar career, project management, director in all these different industries. And so what I came across was that regardless of the type of organization, folks were still making the same mistakes when it comes to leading their teams, and trying to make the organization run better. And so about 5 years ago, I set out to help small and mid-sized businesses because that was a hugely underserved, it still is, it's a hugely underserved market. So people, if you talk to older folks who think about consulting, they'll think about the McKinsey, the Bain, the Boston, the Deloittes, the big ones, but they work almost exclusively with Fortune 1000 companies. The rest of the economy, the other 47% of the businesses that hire, everyday folks and work in just small and mid-sized businesses, they don't have access to that. They don't have access to that industry knowledge, that expertise, the folks who are passionate about this. So I set out to change that.
Awesome. So, typically are these companies coming to you, or these nonprofits or government agencies, when there might be a cultural leadership problem, or are they coming to you? Typically, how do they, why would they want to hire someone like you, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we usually say, we call it a latent issue. They think that they have a problem with, their folks need better emotional intelligence. Their folks need better communication skills. Their folks need better time management techniques. And when we get in there, we uncover that there's usually a deeper issue below the surface. And when they think they're, hey, we just want you to teach, how to communicate better and send better emails. And it really turns out that there's, personality conflicts. They've never gone through kind of the forming phase, of putting their teams together. this new COVID environment, working, virtually almost exclusively, we find that there's other issues. And when we present it to the leadership team, sometimes they're aware of it and just in denial. Other times they're just completely unaware.
And so, can you describe your educational background? So, let's say somebody that's interested in management out there is
Mhm.
listening, and they're looking to maybe they want to excel in leadership. What's your educational background, just for my audience?
Yeah. So let me caveat that and say, with being a consultant, the things you need are experience, expertise, and education. Right. So when I say that, when you are passionate about whatever it is you're doing, the education takes both a formal and informal kind of road. So formally, my education, I have my undergraduate in public policy, and my master's is in public management and leadership. And I'm right now going for my doctorate in organizational leadership at Hood College, which is in Frederick, Maryland. That's not required for a consultant. I I work with and know great consultants who have an associate's degree and they have certificates in their specific industry, their field. So consultants who work in the IT field, right? They don't necessarily need a bachelor's or a master's, although some have it. What they need more is the expertise in ITIL, CMMI, all these different certificates, which I really have no idea what they are, but they do. So for me, what helps me with organizations is understanding the business management side, you know, what the psychology side, what makes people tick, what motivates people, where things are going, how to work and collaborate with others, all of those kind of skills that aren't really accounting or history, things that you can't put a, quantitative number on and say, well, I excelled in, earth sciences, so I'm a earth science consultant. It doesn't quite work like that. So, but the experience is definitely as important as the education.
Makes sense. What do you love about your job? What are you passionate about? What gets you going?
Yeah, I love seeing the transformation in people and in the organizations. I just have always been, I don't know, that's the selfish part of me that likes seeing that aha moment in folks when they start getting it and then they start kind of accelerating and advancing in their own personal leadership style and they're able to have a greater impact in their organization. That's what I love. And it's being able to build the team, right? To be able to put your fingerprint on something and say, I helped make that better, whatever that is. I took the stress off of somebody's shoulders. I did whatever for that organization and helped them retain really good people. That's what I really enjoy. And I think that I know that comes from, and maybe you've had this too, having that unpleasant experience of being in places where it's the exact opposite. And, for your listeners out there, it's a spider web and you will eventually get caught with having a bad manager, right? We've all had it. And I think what you'll find is, when you work at those kind of places, those years, they're like dog years, right? It grinds you down to the nub. And unfortunately, I had that experience a couple of times, but I also had great leaders, great mentors, and worked at some great places. And that's when I, kind of had that realization, which was, why can't small and mid-sized businesses, why can't other places be like this? And it's not that they don't have the ability, they just haven't ever been shown.
Yeah, No, I agree with you. I've been lucky over my life, or I guess I've made choices that have gotten me out of that situation. And that's what I always encourage my audience to do. If they're in an untoxic work environment, then
Oh yeah.
remove yourself immediately. So I've had absolutely one in particular that I can remember back on, and it
Mhm,
was life changing for me because, like you said, it's dog days. But at the end, I took something positive out of it.
mhm.
He's actually a boss that told me that I should do more facilitating workshops back in my career.
Oh,
And so, you can take positives from every situation. I had
yeah.
never even seen my own strengths, and he was pushing me towards doing that. And right there was my passion the whole time. So,
Yep.
um, absolutely love that. Now, on the flip side, sometimes this is hard for people to answer. Other people know it right off the top of their head. But
Mhm,
what's something that you may not like about your job, or that's difficult or challenging that
mhm.
you may want to share?
Yeah. So this is like the old saying: nobody calls the electric company to thank them for keeping the lights on, right? They only call when there's a problem. And so that's one of the things you need to understand if you're going to consult. Most of the consulting, not all, but most, there people are reaching out to you when the power's not on, right? When things aren't going well. You know, I've had it explained to me that, they'll call me in and say, "Look, I pull the levers and nothing's happening. And I need you to figure out why isn't anything happening?" And if you're not prepared for that, and you think you're going into just a great situation to make it even better, you're going to be disillusioned, and it's going to be frustrating. So that's the one area. The other is you need to have patience, right? And I was never a very patient kid, so this is something that I have had to learn. Uh, but if you know the change that's going to happen in 6, 9, 12 months, you have to be willing to be patient and work with, that person or that organization to help them get to where they want to be, right? It's not going to happen overnight. And those are really the biggest challenges that I find. And I just have to remind myself each time, that they're at a certain place, at a certain stage in their growth, in their leadership journey, and that's okay.
Makes sense. Now, if we took you in a time machine, we're going to take you back into a time machine, and we're going to take you back to grade school,
Oh boy.
second grade, third grade, fourth grade, whatever you can remember. Was there a dream career you always dreamed about being? And obviously, it's probably not a leadership consultant,
Right.
but what was your dream career as a kid?
I wanted to be a marine biologist like Jacques Cousteau, right? And I just remember watching his specials and being like, oh, that's so cool. Like, getting to explore and go these different places. And what I've found is that all through, my childhood into my teenage years and after college, I had that wandering bone. Like I just had to get out and see things for myself. I had to try different things. I had to go different places. I was born and raised in the city of Philadelphia. My one brother lives down in North Carolina. He's lived Philadelphia and he lives in North Carolina. My sister still lives there. I've lived, I think, 14 different places, since graduating college. So for me, it was always the adventure, the exploration, the meeting different people, different cultures, different, whatever, different jobs. And I was never afraid to say, you know what, this job isn't for me. This industry, this career, not for me. I want to do something else. And I think too often, uh, and I have two. So let me say this: I have two boys, two teenage boys, and I tell them, you know, whatever you think you want to be or going to do, whatever, in your 20s, that's going to change in your 30s, and then again in your 40s and your 50s, and that's okay. It's okay. You're not bound by some, whatever cosmic written in stone, thou shalt be this, and you have to be an accountant or you have to be whatever your whole life. You don't. You take those skills and you transfer them, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you've picked up and bring value to the next place that you go. So, yeah, long answer to a short question. I wanted to be an explorer.
Interesting. Now you're exploring companies to help them
I am.
find a solution. So
Yeah.
very interesting. And you know, it's amazing. You can fill in for me when I go on vacation for spring break based on that answer. Um, so let's walk through your day. You
Yep.
know, I always encourage anybody, if
Mhm.
they're going to make a career transition, to job shadow or
Yeah.
do preceptorships. So obviously with your type of work, with anybody, your day is going to change. I understand that. So,
Yeah.
but let's walk through a typical day. Let's say there was somebody with you, Adam,
Mhm.
and they were waking up, having coffee with you, and then they were leaving the office. Can you describe your typical day? What does that look like?
So in the mornings, let me say I keep about 8:30 to 4:30 as kind of client centric time, right? And that's where I'm providing the value that I can to individuals, organizations, whomever. Prior to that, so in the morning, I really work on the prep side of getting ready for the coaching and the consulting. So that's reviewing previous notes, checking metrics to see, are they where they should be, just all that different kind of back end work that people don't necessarily think about when they think about consultants. And then the mornings, usually more times than not, are for individual leadership coaching sessions. And that's really just a product of people's schedules. I find that most people want to do the individual work in the mornings, and in the afternoons, it's more organizational focused. That's usually because I'm shadowing a meeting, attending some kind of group function, and those typically take place in the afternoons. And then after that is when I work on content, and deliverables. So the content, for your audience, that's the thought leadership stuff that we put out there, the articles, the writings, everything we can do to help people who are looking to get better to get better. But then there's also, the other side of that, which is we have to create certain things, deliverables, whether it's forms or processes or whatever, for the folks that we're helping. And so we need to find time to do that. And that comes, kind of at the end of my day. And I think, the disservice that we still do to younger folks is that, we have this imaginary 9 to 5 mentality. We're stuck in that industrial age where, 9 o'clock I show up, 5 o'clock whistle blows, down to the back of the dinosaur, yabba dabba doo, I'm on my way home. And I think this last year has shown us, there's a blending of, that work and personal life. Most of us now are working from home. Right. And, just because 5 o'clock rolls around doesn't mean that I'm absolved of my responsibilities to the people that I coach and the people that I consult. So I find time to do that. And then the other part is after supper, I find time to work on getting better at my craft. Right. So there's that back end work that people don't often think about, which is, amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong.
Love it.
So, and that's where, so people, it's funny when I hear, oh, you're a consultant, you have banker's hours 10 to 2. I'm like, if you only knew. Right. So yeah, that's a pretty typical day, pretty typical week. Where I deliver my services, most times now it's like this, but there are still places that need me to come in. And we do the training on site. Everybody's 6 to 10 feet apart and we're all masked up, but it still has to be done in person. So it just depends.
And you can tell by the back of your background that you're continuing to develop, and that's what good
Yes.
consultants do. They're continually learning. They're reading books, they're articles, they're studying materials. So, I think for a lot of consultants, there's a misnomer that, like you said, it's a 10 to 2 job. I don't think it ever really stops, to be honest with you. It's a 24-hour, 7-day a week job. It depends on what times you pick to handle those type situations. So I appreciate you being really honest with us about that,
Yeah,
certainly. So, Adam, I do want to get to some of these questions because
sure.
quite a few were emailed in, and
Ooh,
I think
good.
people are interested. So, just the basic question right off the top of the block: how do you define leadership?
Ooh, that's a great one. So it's the ability to influence other people to achieve outcomes for the organization.
Could you
Right?
repeat that just for my audience
Yeah.
one more time?
So it is the ability to influence others to achieve a positive outcome.
Awesome. That's a great definition. And the next question is, I'm a student and I constantly hear that I need to work on my leadership skills. What are some of the things a young person can do to become a better leader or learn leadership?
Ooh. So that's a great question. Whoever asked that is headed in the right direction. They're on the right trajectory. So the first thing is, and seems counterintuitive, but is to work on your followership, right? So yeah, those that cannot follow cannot lead, right? And Seneca said that. So that's being able to take direction, being able to take instruction, and be humble about it is kind of that first part. And then from there, when they, often when we talk about to young folks, you need to work on your leadership. It's how you communicate what you're trying to get across, right? Rarely it's what you say. Most of the time it's how you say it, right? So we've probably all seen that meme, where the boss is, whipping the people trying to get them, and the leader's in front saying, "Let's go," right? So people confuse leadership and management. Leaders lead people, managers manage systems. When you're working on your leadership, you have to be able to convince others that to go in a certain direction, to go this way or that way, not just tell them and yell at them. So communication and listening. Those are the two big things for young leaders.
And what's anything you could recommend? I'm just thinking off the top of my head, maybe, guys, if you're out there, even in a class, if they give you a group assignment, that's when you can really demonstrate leadership
Oh yeah,
there. And so, we're not necessarily saying, go run a Fortune 500 company, but
right.
there's stuff you can do as a student or nonprofit organizations or
So all the different. So if you're in high school, there's a couple different clubs and organizations. There may also be community activities, sports teams, you name it. There's opportunities for you to just anywhere there's a group of people that need to accomplish something, they need a leader, right? And you may not be the leader, but you can be a leader. And I think people get confused that you need to have a formal title or position to be a leader. That's not true. You can be a thought leader, you can be an influential leader, just by your character and your integrity and your expertise. That sets you apart as a leader. And if you're in college, there's other, or post college, there are plenty of other opportunities there. Again, clubs, activities, social events, community things. You can start your own. If you, whatever it is, hey, I want to do a clothing drive or a food drive or whatever. That's an opportunity to exercise and practice your leadership.
Awesome. And the next question comes in. It says, I'm trying to advance into sales management. I
Mhm.
continually get told at my company that I've never managed direct reports or have never managed people. But
Mhm.
how can you manage people? How can you get the job if you don't have that experience? I guess
Yeah.
the question is.
Yeah, it's the tail wagging the dog, right? So it goes back to what I said earlier. I would tell the folks, you don't manage people, you lead people, right? And you manage systems. And if it's about getting results and providing value, right? It's transformational and servant leadership are about providing value and making things better. So it would be asking, hey, give me an opportunity to lead a project. Let me show you what I'm capable of. So, it's kind of the try before you buy it. Let them see what you can do in action and say, hey, I want to volunteer for this, whatever this project is, or I want to do this. then make the assessment whether or not, I'm capable of it.
Makes sense. Great advice. Is there a book out there that you would recommend, your top book on leadership?
Ooh, that's so I love to read, obviously, based on the background. So it depends on where you're at in your leadership journey, right? So if you're uh, at the beginning of your journey, John Maxwell's The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is a great place. If you're looking for self-leadership, Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And if you're leading teams or organizations, Jim Collins' book, Good to Great.
Read them all. Great advice. Great advice. Especially the first one. I'm a big John Maxwell fan, so I appreciate that. Now, Adam, where can folks find you? Let's say, you never know who might be listening out there. Maybe there's a small business or an organization that maybe want to talk to you further. Where can they get in touch with you at?
Yeah, thank you. So our website is centerpointleadership.co. And I am on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter under AT Cubbage. You can find me there. I'm posting pretty much every day, just continuing to add more content because I want to add value. Like I want to give people, all those kind of bumps and bruises and scraped knuckles and, broken fingernails that I've gotten along the way. I want to help people avoid those mistakes, and do better than I did. So look for me there. You can find it. Also, in about around mid-April, I've got a book coming out, The Center Point of Leadership, which talks about, gives stories of, my foibles and struggles along the way of leading, and kind of the principles behind what I follow and also what I teach to help emerging leaders, really have a positive impact.
Awesome. So if you guys are out there listening, constantly I get asked, well, who do I link in with? Well, Adam just gave you two. You got me and you got him right here. So, and so we really appreciate that, Adam. We know you're really busy. Just thank you so much for giving back and allowing people to take a peek behind the scenes at what you do career-wise. It's been very enjoyable, and we do really appreciate you coming on the show.
Same here. I really appreciate what you're doing, reaching out to that younger audience. And, I can't express enough, go out, even if you're not thinking about changing jobs or whatever, just the shadowing and learning about what's out there. The world is so big and broad, and what you're doing to help, shine a light on that to show others, I think is fantastic. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam. Have a great day.